Good day, everyone, and a warm welcome. I see some people are still joining, but I think we should start. We've got a full program today. A very warm welcome. This is our fourth and last webinar for the community initiative that Shadowmatch launched this year. All the topics for the community initiative webinars were about parenting. This is our fourth one. We had the first one on the 15th of February, and that was about parenting of adult children. Then we had one on the 14th of June, parenting of teenagers. And on the 16th of August was the third one, and that was parenting of young kids up to the age of about 12, 13 years of age. For those of you that have missed those webinars, it is available. You can go to our Shadowmatch calendar. I will post the link in the chat shortly. You can find it on shadowmatch.com, the events calendar 2022. If you go to the calendar and you go to that specific date, 15 Feb, 14 June, and 16 August, you will find the YouTube link to the recordings of these webinars. Today's webinar specifically is then about parenting of newborns and toddlers up to the age of 5, 6, 7 years of age, maybe even 8 years of age. So this is the most important one and promises to be very insightful. My name's Lizette de Villiers. I'll be the host this afternoon, and I will shortly hand to Pieter de Villiers. He's the presenter. Just a few interesting things. Pieter is the head of research and development at Shadowmatch. For a large part of his life, he specialized in youth counseling, and during his study years, he specialized in pre-birth, birth, and early childhood development. So no better person to share the information than Pieter today. A few house rules before I hand to Pieter. You will notice that your microphone is currently in the forced mute setting. It will remain like that for the duration of the webinar. You are welcome to make use of the chat for any questions or comments. And then, because it's such a full agenda today, we will probably finish on the dot 4 o'clock in South African time, 4 o'clock SA time, and then we will allow for questions. So those of you that need to run, you're welcome to run on the dot on the hour. Pieter will stay behind. You're welcome to stay behind. I will then enable the setting for you to unmute your microphone, and then you can participate in questions and discussion as you wish. Thank you very much from my side. I think that's all for now. Pieter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lizette. Welcome, everybody. Today is the community initiative from the Shadowmatch team. And what we do is we try to address some of the issues that are of common interest in the community, and see if we could in this way help people to find their way in this challenging and difficult world that we live in, and also under very tough circumstances, especially when you have the task of raising a child. And if the child is where my children are, you are in a very fortunate position. Other than you can blame yourself for all the things that you see went wrong in their learning and development, but the upside of that, it's too late. It is what it is. We have to move on. So just as an interesting comment from my side, I have 3 children. They are adults now. They're not children anymore. And you will see if you watch the first webinar that we hosted, there's a problem. You cannot refer to adult children. There's no such thing as an adult child. It's either an adult or a child. But what we actually what we want to say is I have children that are adults now. Today is probably the most important of all the webinars that we have hosted about parenting thus far, because the first 7 years of development, they've now actually, in the more recent research, they brought the upper age down to about 5. I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. And the reason for that is I think it gives us just a bit of a tight understanding of the development, early childhood development, because what they say currently, the research indicates that the end of the foundation phase is probably 5 years, 5 to 6. There's a bit of a difference between boys and girls. For boys, around about 6, for girls, about 5. I still like the idea of 7, 8/7 years, 8 years old. But what I don't like is that we have milestones that are specific age related, because it makes parents very nervous if they get to that point and now the child cannot do what the milestone says the child can do, and then they are up in arms and there's something seriously wrong, it's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. Just relax and get the milestones out of your mind. It is not cast in stone. It's a very broad sort of an indication. And if you work with that, you are in a good space. So we have a very full agenda for today, and I seriously hope that we will get through everything. I will try my best to move on as good as I can without rushing the content. Obviously, I don't want to do that. The theme for today, successful parenting from birth to 7 years. We divide the 7 years into 2 subsections, from birth to 3 years. And again, we have 2.5 on the lower end, maybe 2 years and 3 months. And we have 5 years on the upper end. So, but there's sort of a cutoff point on somewhere around 3 years of age. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the upper scale, 7, 8 years old is the high end of this scale. So what we will do now is I will now take you to the detail of this. This is what we will do today. We will take a quick look at the broad structures of this phase of development, a very few basic principles in order to help parents understand some critical aspects of parenting. Then we will have 10 must-do actions for the early phase, the birth to 3 years old. And we will have 10 must-do actions for the 3 to 7, 8 years old. And then we will have 10 don't do this with the early phase and 10 do this, because it's actually 2 distinct phases, but obviously we deal with them as one. Remember, we work with the phase from birth to about 7 years old. Keep this in mind. We work with this phase of birth to about 7 years old. What we must keep in mind is that this is the most important phase of our development. There's no question about it. And this we can, in every research article, in every book that's been published that is credible, where people understand the entire development of an adult, they will all be in one voice. This is absolutely critical. We refer to it as the foundation phase. This is a bit of a new name. There are other names that's been used over in the history of the academic work, but currently we prefer the reference of the foundation phase. Then parents anchor and structure the architecture of the child's brain for the rest of their lives during this phase. This is a horrible statement, because what it says is, as a parent, and you will see later on how important it's actually as a parent, not parents, not both, one. As a parent, we structure and we anchor the entire architecture of the child's brain for the rest of their lives. So the question is, can we fix what goes wrong? Sometimes we can. Yes, we can. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't. This is the challenge that we have with early development. So let's talk about a few of the principles. We will go through some of these headline principles, and please forgive me for the fact that we have on this slide 6 points. There could easily be 200 points. So I've just selected the ones that are easy to discuss, obviously easy to present, and that are, it stands sort of above question. The newborn brain has as many neurons as the adult brain, 100 billion. That's roundabout. They can argue, they argue a bit, but they argue about minor things. Is it 110 or is it 90? But they are sort of in the same frame as it's around about 100 billion neurons. Now, a neuron cell is a very clever piece of equipment. It can accommodate more than one data points. So it can accommodate, some say 15, 20 data points in one neuron cell. So the adult brain has got about 5% more than the newborn, but that 5% is dead material. It doesn't work anymore. It's on its way out. So it's brain cells that is dysfunctional. It doesn't communicate anymore. The things are on their way out. The brain is trying to get rid of them into the bloodstream and out of the system. So these neurons are not connected. This is a sentence, dear everybody, that we must really try and make a note of. The neuron cells in the brains are not connected. Only the basic functions of the child are connected. In other words, how to swallow, how to hold onto something. The moment the newborn is in this world, they can grab something. So that program, those connections are there. They can swallow. Their mouth structure is quite intelligent. They don't talk to each other. The neurons do not talk to each other, so that actions are possible. So they're not connected. So they cannot talk to one another in order to execute a task and to hold the body upright and to control body functions. There are no connections between them. The actions of the body connect the neurons. So how does the neurons connect with one another? By means of the information they receive from the physical world around them and the actions that the physical body takes. So if they move their arms and if they hold their head upright, it's a way of connecting the neurons so that the patterns of control starts to grow. The actions of the body connect the neurons. This is very important. They cannot learn to walk unless they stand on their feet and they start walking. That's the way the brain, it's an artificial, well, it's a naturally intelligent system. It learns as a result of the actions that the body takes. And it learns extremely quickly. I'll show you some of the detail. So the brain is very soft. Make a mental note of this point. We will come back to this again and again and again. The brain of a newborn it's very soft. Think of it as something between yogurt and jelly. It's slightly more consistent than yogurt, but it's much less consistent than jelly. So it's somewhere in between, but on the yogurt side of consistency. So it's almost, it's very thin, and it is the consistency in it, the thickness of it, and the stubbornness of the brain substance is very low. So it's fluid. And if you shake the head of the baby, that it shakes the brain and the neurons break up. So we'll get to that. Relax. The neurons connect at a rate of 1 million connections per second. Now, up to about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago maximum, the scientists were convinced that the brain connects at a rate of about 500,000 connections per second from birth onwards. The research is now concluded on this. It connects at the rate of a minimum 1 million connections per second. If you send me an email, I can send you the article to read on this. It's a very credible article by a very, very solid research group where they have published this as a white paper. So now let's do a few calculations. If the child is in a situation, the newborn is in a situation where the connections in the brain are being made in a negative and in a bad way for a minute, 60 million connections went wrong, south. Now imagine if that child is in poor care for an hour. It's 60 million connections per second for an hour. Imagine the child is in bad caretaking for a day. It's 8 hours, times 60 minutes, times 60 seconds, times 1,000,000 connections. We must think about this very carefully. They are very vulnerable for injuries because of the soft bone structure of the skull. The brain is protected by the bone structure around it. And up to about a year old, the bone structure around the brain is extremely soft, and the brain is very fluid and very soft. It's like jelly, it's like yogurt. So you cannot allow that the baby takes a knock on the head. There's no way that you can allow it. The child must be handled slowly and carefully because they are extremely vulnerable for brain injuries in the age 0 to 1 year. Yes, it recovers, but it's very easy to sit with damage that it looks like it has recovered, but it hasn't. Let's have a look at the infant body, the newborn body. It's not connected to the brain for voluntary actions and control. So there's no connections between the muscle structure and the bone structure and the brain. It must form as the child starts to act and behave and interact with the environment. Lungs are sensitive and sore for months. Remember, they didn't breathe for 9 months. In the last critical phase of pregnancies, they start to breathe water just to create space in the lungs. So it's an inhale of water and then an exhale of water. But then the lungs go flat. And when they are in the world with a mother, they start to breathe. Obviously, that's quite critical. They have to start breathing. But then the lungs have never had any of the oxygen and the nitrogen and the stuff that we have in the atmosphere inside of them. And it's extremely hurtful for the child. So we must be very soft on the first 10, 15, 24 hours so that the lungs can become sort of comfortable with taking in oxygen and the gases that is in the atmosphere. The eyes, for the same reason, are very sensitive to light. Do not shine a bright light in the eyes of an infant under the age of 1 year. Don't do it. We can argue the point later. Just don't do it. The ears are extremely sensitive to sound. Don't any clap sound of clapping of the hands, any harsh immediate sound like the grinding of stuff, clapping of your hands, a gunshot, an immediate harsh sound could damage the nerve system between the ear and the brain. And it might be such that it takes many years to recover if it recovers. The skin is very sensitive, and it's more of an emotional contact with the world than just a physical contact. They experience the emotions of the people primarily through their skin. The skin of the newborn is extremely sensitive to contact with another skin. They pick up the heartbeat of their mothers by holding their hands. And that is the best preventer of in-child death or baby death or whatever, early baby deaths, many names. They pick up the heartbeat of their mothers by holding the mother's finger, and that triggers the beating of their heart to continuously stay in rhythm with the mother. So the skin is extremely sensitive, especially around the mouth. For breastfeeding, I'll explain that a little bit later on. Joints are not strong and must not carry the weight of the baby. Do not pick up the child by their hands, by their legs, or by their arms. Don't do it. You damage the joints. They are not strong enough. They are not in place and intact to take the body of the child. And eventually it causes long-term problems for the young and the older adult. Socially, this is bad news. This is absolutely bad news. The newborn has only one social connection, and that is with the biological mother. That's it. They have no other, not the father. And the fathers can, now just relax. I'm also a father. And I've taken the same knock when my kids were born. They do not attach to me because they didn't grow in my body. It's simple. It's not rocket science. There's nothing to understand about it. It's straightforward. They have one social connection. We can discuss later on if you want to after 4 o'clock, the twins and triplets and so on. It's a complicated thing, but let's leave it for one baby now. Nobody and nothing replace that. The moment the newborn is away from the mother, they become stressed. Finish. It doesn't matter what the situation is. The moment they are away from the mother, stress starts to build up. And you cannot replace it with the father or the grandmother. You cannot replace it. I know we don't want to hear it because we need to go back to work. I'm just here to give you the facts. I'm sorry for being that person. I'm here for the facts. Breastfeeding is more than feeding. These are sentences that we must keep in mind. It's a mechanism for emotional bonding and a sense of safety. Breastfeeding is much more than giving the body food. It's an emotional, sensitive activity that relaxes the child. And as the child relaxes, the neurons of the brain is much better equipped to connect with one another in a solid and a stable manner. It is a medical, biochemical communication system. How it works is that if there's a shortage in the body of the newborn, that shortage creates a chemical substance on the mouth. And it tells the mother through the breastfeeding channel about the shortage in the body of the child. The mother then produces what is necessary for the child to fill the shortages in their system. And within 4 hours, the level of the shortage in the child's body has been provided into the milk of the mother. And in the next feeding, the child can then fill up the shortages in their bodies by the next time it's time to feed them. So if you can, and it's possible, please breastfeed your children, mothers, for at least 1 year. I know it's tough. I know. And I'm not even a mother. Infants feel their mothers and they are extremely sensitive to stay connected with them for at least the first year. This is critical. They feel the presence of their mothers. They are known to their voices from inception. The voice of the mother is the voice that comforts them. It's familiar. It's the sound that they have heard since day one of inception. If that was possible, some think it is. But it's the voice and the presence of the mother that creates a level of sensitive comfort for them. Now what we want to do is, this is the big issue, the balance between bonding and separation. We must keep in mind that if the child doesn't bond with a mother, they cannot bond with other people later on in their lives. And if they overbond with their mothers, they overbond with other people. So it's a complicated thing. Let's just see what the facts are and then try to manage it within the framework of the best we can. Pre-birth, the child and the mother shares one body. They function as one body. It's a fully integrated system, and the functions are integrated as one medical system or one body. Breathing, blood, safety, food, temperature, energy, emotionally, it becomes one unit, the child and the mother, pre-birth. Now, the biggest event in the life of an individual is the event of being born, because what then happens is this bonding structure breaks. And after birth, the child experiences a massive impact of separation and rejection. So this is important. The child experiences this massive break with a body that was part of the child's existence. Birth is the most traumatic moment of separation in our lives. The baby moves from a dark, weightless, soundproof environment where they never had to breathe or process intense light or sound to a world that is loud with intense light, where they have to breathe and do the things themselves. The recovery period, what we want is we want the child to recover from this intense experience of separation to a balance point somewhere that is very close with the mother and in a very close bonding situation with the mother. The recovery period from this knock to a balanced point is 1 year. That's it. 1 year. It takes the child 1 year to recover. It also takes a year for the child to build enough neuron connections to start walking and talking. The scientists are currently of the opinion that it is the knock of this separation that causes this time lapse for the child to learn the basics of life. With animals, obviously, they are born and they run around and they start eating. So the mother should not leave the child during this phase. It is critical for the balance between bonding and separation. What now happens is milestone number 1, I hate this word and bear with me, at about 1 year, roundabout, and give yourself 6 months on and about 4 months earlier for the child to walk. So it's very broad, but 85% of children walk by the time they are 13 months, 14, 15 months, they walk. So milestone number 1 is the toddler can walk and talk single words with meaning. 1 word with meaning. That's the first milestone. Then the second milestone there is all the body functions of the toddler are under control. Independent eating is critical. This is a critical measurement. All the body functions of the toddler are under control, but independent eating is the most critical. It's more critical than the other body functions. So this is the next thing. And this, it could happen 2.5 years, some 2 years, 2.5 for a small minority, 3.5 for the majority, let's say 2.5 to 3.5 for the majority, and then within the frame of normal up to 4 years when this is in place and it's fully, the body functions are fully under control. So what you see now, as these body functions become more controllable for the child, the separation increases. So they are more separate to the mother and independent. Now separation with the mother must start at the age of around about 3. Let's take 3 as the marking point. Now separation with a mother must start, and we must progressively bond with the child and separate with the child so that at the age of 16 to 18, they are fully separate of their parents. Some only get there when they're 25, but relax. That's not the point now. Between 6 and 8 years, the child must be able to function without mother for a full day in the care of other people without stress. Without stress. They must be able to function for a full day in the care of other people outside of the household, mother and father and other siblings, for a full day from, let's say, 8 o'clock to about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Stretching to 5, 6 o'clock is a bit of a stretch. That then they become irritated. These are teachers, friends, family, etc. So this is sort of how we must make progress with the balance between bonding and separation. Now, if we lose it on either side of these two realities, obviously the implications in a later life might become visible. So up to that point, 3 to 4 years old, up to that point here, the mother is the single most important anchor. There's no question about it. and we cannot change it, and we can do whatever we want. That's it. It is about the mother and the mother alone. Nobody and nothing can replace the mother. Let's have a look at the to-dos and the don'ts. First, the newborn child and early toddler phase, birth to about 3 years old. Let's start. Don't shake or bounce the child in any way. Nothing. The brain is like yogurt. If you shake the child and you bounce the child harsh on your knee, you break the neuron connections in the brain. The child cannot tell you, listen, you are destroying my brain connections. But that's what we do. Don't do it. Don't do it. The brain is like water, almost. You must think of it as a mass of water that is tightly compressed into the skull. Don't do it. There's no need for it. It doesn't make the baby feel better. It's rubbish. It doesn't. And parents can say, but my child falls asleep when I bounce or shake them. Exactly, you cause them, the brain, to shut off, to protect itself. So please, just don't do it. Put them in jumpers and walking support holders. Now, dear mothers and everybody in the room, we were not made for jumpers and walking support holders. We were made to crawl. It's a soft activity. If you fall, you fall. You don't fall that far. Your head is very close to the ground for a specific reason. Your head is not in an upright position to overstress the muscles of the neck. There's a reason for this. And it's all designed by head office. Please don't think we are clever than head office. And don't put your child in walking support stuff. It doesn't matter what they sell you. It doesn't matter how convincing they are. Just don't do it. Don't use food as a comforter. No force feeding. 0. Don't overfeed the child, and don't, if the baby cries, the first thing that comes into my mind when I had to look after our toddlers when they were small, and my wife had to then go out and do some stuff, their mother, I got so nervous when they started crying. And the only solution that I have in mind is I must give them something to eat or drink. Don't. Feed them according to a structure, the amount of food they need for their growth and their health, and stick to that structure. Overfeeding the child. Let me just share to you how we connect the brain neurons. The child is in trouble. Something is uncomfortable. The lights might be too bright. There's a sound that irritates them. They might be warm, or they're too hot or too cold. There is something in their side, in their clothing that irritates them. And the only voice that they have is to cry. So what they communicate is, I have a crisis. So what the mother and the father does is they feed them. So the neurons in the brain connect like this. If you have a crisis, eat. It's not clever. And if they're 35, they are stressed at work, they start eating. And then we wonder where did this start? It started when they were toddlers, 3 years old. And it's all to blame on me, the parent. So we don't do it. Don't create connections in the brain that is not necessary and that's not healthy. Let's move on. Pick up their body weight with their arms or legs. Don't do it. Never, even when they are 6 and 7 years old, don't do it. Until they can hang by themselves by holding a branch of a tree and swing around, don't do it. Let me explain to you. Let's play a game. I am 20 times your size as an adult. So I am 20 times bigger than you. I grab you by your hand and I pull you up above my head. You'd like that? You would like that. I assume so. I'll break your arm. I'll destroy the ligaments in your shoulder. And then I swing you around my body at 2 stories high from the ground relative to your size. And you start crying and out of hysterics, start laughing, and I think this is a big joke, my child loves it. Stop it. Don't do it. It's not necessary. Let the child develop naturally. Don't shout and scream in the environment. Obviously, I'm not going to explain this. Don't become emotional and shout and scream in the environment. And even just for the fun of it, shout and scream in the environment. They do not understand the underlying messages of this. They see this as aggressive behavior and rejection towards them. Don't strap your child. Strapping the child means I have something that I strap the child against my body in front or at the back. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want to go into the detail. Ask me on email. It's not for public consumption, but it's extremely bad for the development of the child's brain. If you strap them with their face away from their body so that your body is not here. Strap them with an open view of the world. But if possible, hold the baby in your arms. Don't strap them. And if you can't hold them, I can't hold a baby for longer than 10, 20 seconds or a minute, then I'm tired. Then put them in something and push them around. Zero light where the child sleeps during nighttime. Darkness is absolutely important. There must be zero light where the child sleeps. Bad sleeping patterns are the result of some light, just a little bit of light from the street outside where the curtains are not closed can create sleep disorders with a child, and then it's treatment and it's a issue. The child was for 9 months in a complete dark room, complete darkness. That's where they lived. If they are in the world with us, we must try during nighttime, not daytime, during nighttime, to let them sleep where it is completely pitch dark. Don't create any form of fear. This is something that we do. We have toys that are very scary. We have toys that are extremely aggressive. We might threaten the child if you don't eat and if you don't do, and we have a body language of rejection. We create fear. The child processes this. The child reacts to that with frustration, and then it becomes a spiral and we lose control. Don't reject directly or indirectly. No passive or active rejection, nothing. Don't leave the child without the mother. Don't, listen carefully. Don't leave the child without the mother for a year. It's only a year. For heaven's sake, it's not that much. Don't do it. The child experienced this as passive rejection. Don't do it if you can, and if you can't, make a plan. Let them stare at the television. Don't do it. No TV during the first year. Now, dear mothers and parents and whoever is with us, we were not made with TVs in the environment. It's a new thing. We are not there yet, where we have gone through the development to take and absorb the flickering and the light and the images from a TV screen pre-1 year old. Just do everything you can not to expose your child to a television. This is the sentence that I didn't want to share with you, but I have to, because we are here for the facts and not for the emotions. Be very careful, because all injuries to an infant is an injury to the brain. All injuries. All injuries to the infant is an injury to the brain, because it either connects the neurons in a horrible way, or it breaks the neurons up, or it damages the way in which the neurons understand the world around them. All injuries and all damages is a damage to the brain. Keep that in mind. You must do. This is a great picture, dear delegates and participants. This is a great picture. Don't hold the child in the face of learning, teaching them to walk with their hands up above their heads. It's uncomfortable for them, and it's not good for their joints and their balance. You must hold their bodies from behind them so that they see the world in front of them, and they make progress into the world and balance themselves with you holding their bodies. In other words, the torso of the body, not the hands, not the hands. The torso of the body must be held from the back. Just a point of interest. That's a great picture if you want to remember it. Be calm, soft, and relaxed. If a mother wants her child to be calm, the mother must be calm. When my eldest daughter was 6 months old, we had a great GP, and the kid was difficult. She was difficult, but the mother was not easy. So the mother was as difficult. So eventually, the evening, we went to the GP. He was still at his practice, and he had a look at the child, very relaxed, and she relaxed. And he said to her mother, I want to give you an injection to relax. And he gave the mother the injection to relax, and the child relaxed. If we want relaxed, calm, and collected together kids, that is what we must be. They will become who we are. That's it. Fact. You must serve and return. This is a technical term that I want to explain. Serve and return means you do something as the mother, or from time to time, obviously, the father will also try and do this because they are part of the equation, but it works best with the mother. So the mother must do something and the child returns. So the mother would hold a pencil, and the child will grab the pencil and then take the pencil. Then the child holds the pencil, the mother takes the pencil, and the child releases. This is critical, to talk to the child and to listen if they react in any way, and then react to that by normal language, no baby language, normal tone of voice, normal interaction, as if this is an adult. So normal talk, normal tone of voice, everything normal, but you must, it's a serve and return. It's a technical term in the world of psychology. It says we must continuously work with a child in this reactive interaction. I do something, the child do something back. I acknowledge there's something that the child does, and the child then reacts to mine. So, and it could be physical, it could be play with hands, it could be play with a toy, it could be touch and feel and hold and let go, anything. But that serve and return communication is absolutely critical. It connects the neurons of the brain in a very healthy. Talk a lot, sing, read, play classical music, especially the violin. Especially violin music seems to be the most relaxing music for the infant age up to 1, 2, 3 years. But talk a lot to them. The more you talk to them, the better. The more you read to them. And if you read to them, dear mothers and fathers, they must see your face. Don't read them whilst they can't see your face, because the brain connects what they hear, what they see, and it starts to create pictures. So they must see your voice, they must see your face and hear your voice and hear the words. So that you cannot read enough stories to them. Einstein said, if you want your children to be clever, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be superior in their intelligence, read them more fairy tales. Einstein was right. Always face the child and be honest and friendly with them. If they are frustrated, give a facial expression of what's wrong. How can I assist you? I want to help you. So use your facial expression in an honest, friendly way to let the child understand that you want to communicate and you want to understand the problems that they experience. Build strong routines. This is absolutely critical. Build strong routines for your child. So if it's 6 o'clock and this happens, 6 o'clock, this happens, 7, this happens, 7, this happens. So it gives them a sense of comfort and it gives them a sense of safety. Behave to cast an imprint that shapes them. You are the example that they will follow. There's no question about it. Even facial expressions, and the way in which they control the muscles in their face, is a way of imitation. They follow the example that they see. So you have to behave with everything, with your tone of voice, your body expressions, your way of walking and talking with them and without them and in their environment in such a way that you say, this is what I want my child to see, and this is what I want my child to become. Let them feel and touch many surfaces. The skin, we said in the beginning, the skin is a communication organ for them. They learn the world around them through the skin, and the mouth structure, the face structure, and the hands are the dominant areas where they learn the world. And that is why they will take anything and put the thing in their mouths. The reason for that is they learn the shape of the object. So try to have things around them that is safe and clean that they can put in their mouths, because that is how they learn the relative size and shape of an object. And it creates the neuron structures in the brain that is necessary for them to have an object intelligence. That's what we call, but we won't have time for that. Breastfeed, we spoke about that. If possible, for 1 year, if you can. Then you must, as a mother, try and stay with them for 3 years. At 3 years, the separation phase starts, and then progressively there must be separation between the mother and the child. And as that separation starts to manifest, then other people become more important, and they can increase their bond with other people, especially obviously the father in their immediate environment. The mother is the connection with the world. That's it. The mother is the connection. The child connects with the father because the father is part of the mother. The mother is the prime connection. So if the mother and the father has a good bonded relationship, the child bonds with the mother, and because of her relationship with the father, the child bonds with the father as well earlier than if the father is absent. Now, with this, the mother is everything. Nothing can replace her. It's tough. I know it. I know it's tough. There's no way out. There is no alternative. The mother is everything. There's no alternative. We can argue this, but life is difficult and it's a financial, but I know it. I know. I've been there. I know it. The point is, the mother is the anchor. The mother is the life of the child. That's it. Finish. Period. Let's move on. The do's and don'ts for the 3 to 7 year old. I'm running out of time. I would like to show you a video, but I'll see if we have time at the end. The first thing is, don't lose it with a child. Shout, scream, and go mad. Now, remember, the child is now 3 years old. We're talking about this phase, 3 to 7 years old. So the child is now on his own feet, on their own feet, his or hers. They talk and they walk and they eat and they sleep and they can do things. They can run around, they can break things, they can pull things off the table. And that's the way in which they learn how the world works. If they don't ever learn how gravity works by allowing something to fall, they might never learn how gravity works. So, but don't lose it with them. Never shout and scream and go mad in any way. You create a child that will become uncontrollable. They will do it to you in the same way you've done it to them. Maybe 30 years later, but watch it. They will come back. The next one is don't handle them with aggressive hard-handedness. Obviously, no physical punishment, nothing. Punishment is something out of the scope of this discussion for today. We can handle it maybe in a later session or the other day, but you must not hard-handedness handle them. Don't pull them around. Don't shake them. Don't hit them. Just don't do it. They will do it back. And they will do it to other children. And where did they learn it? You've taught them to do it. So if you are frustrated with somebody, be hard-handed with them. And they will do it to other children. They become bullies. And where did it come from? From early development. Don't humiliate them. Don't talk down to them. Don't humiliate them. Don't make fools out of them in front of other people. It'll come back. They will do exactly the same to you. and then remember you've done it to them. Ignore bad behavior. You must not ignore bad behavior. You must act firm, but not aggressive. Use the I message. Ferdinand, I don't want you to do this. Please, let's work together. Don't do it. That's it. I. They are very sensitive to an I message. I don't want you to do this. The alternative is, Ferdinand, I want you to do this. Please work with me. Let's dedicate ourselves. Let's focus. Let's do this. I want you. Start your sentences with I. And rather than if the behavior is a bit out of bounds, start asking the question, do you think this is a great idea? If they understand, they will answer you. Don't be inconsistent in your discipline. What was wrong today will be wrong tomorrow and wrong the day after. Don't be inconsistent with the way in which you discipline and create structures of discipline with your child. Don't talk about something that is wrong, and if the child tests your authority, because that's what they do, they will test your authority. If they test your authority, then just let it go. Don't do it. If you are firm and something is not acceptable, stick to your guns and force your authority to the child, but not physical. Not physical. You can hold them a bit and say, listen, we must work with one another now. Let's not frustrate each other. Don't force them to eat. Teach them to eat smart. Forced eating is bad. Just don't do it. We're running out of time. Don't say yes when you shouldn't say no. Parents have an inability to say no. And this is a problem because life will eventually say no to your child, and then the neurons have not connected to accept the answer is no. If you don't teach them that life can bring you to a point where life says, no, you can't have it. That's it. They must accept it. And we must move on. That's what it is. We move on. So don't say yes because you feel guilty. Don't say yes because you don't want to be a bad parent. Don't say yes because you want to be a good parent. Sometimes, well, many times you'll have to say no in order to be a good parent. What is wrong is wrong. That's it. When your behavior is not in line with a structured and a well-organized society, it's wrong. Don't allow tantrums and tears to become manipulating tools. They are extremely powerful with this. They can manipulate you with tantrums and with tears and with crying and get what they want, and they force your hand because you don't want an unhappy child. Don't. If they throw a tantrum, just absorb it and say to her, Alta, I understand you're unhappy. The answer is no. The answer will stay no. You can make up your mind and keep on crying for as long as you want. The answer is no. Live with it. That's it. So there's a bit of a firm hardness in a parent, but never aggressive. Firm and tough, not aggressive. Do for the child what they can do for themselves. Parents do the homework of their children. They feed them, they make up their beds, they brush their teeth, whatever. Please don't do it. The child must become independent one day and live their own lives. And it starts at the age of 2 and 3, where they learn that there are some of the stuff I need to do for myself. And the more I can do for myself, the better for my future. Don't allow bad habits to form. This is a problem, dear parents. We allow bad habits to form in the lives of our child. Let's have a look at a list of 10 must-dos. The parents must now act as one. The mother cannot say the wall is brown and the father comes in and say the wall is yellow. The mother cannot say you can have an ice cream and the father says you can't have an ice cream. The mother cannot say we're going to the shopping center to buy you a bicycle and the father comes and says no bicycle. It's you wreck the brain of the child. They don't know how the world works. They don't understand how authority works. They don't understand what the world wants from them. You need to act as one parents become one, age 3 to 8. Slowly begin the separation process. I'm not going to talk about that a lot. We've spoke that in detail at the early phase of our webinar. Allow to play. It is the university and lecture room. I'm going to rush myself a bit because I want to show you a video, but you must allow the child to play. The child must jump off the veranda and maybe sometimes even break a leg. It's okay. It's much better for them to learn, because injuries now is no longer an injury to the brain. It's a learning injury. So now it's changed from the age 3 to 4. The injuries that life inflicts on them is a learning experience. It's no longer an injury to the way in which the brain connects the cells. So you must allow them to play, and to play as much as they want to, for as long as they want to. And if you can, within limits, for as rough as their own mindsets allow them to play. Let them help them to test, experience, discover, and learn. They must test the world around them. They must discover what happens if you open a tap and you leave it open. What happens? I wonder what will happen if I open this tap and I leave it open for a day. Help them in a way to discover what will happen, or explain it to them. If you can, obviously, let them experience it within the limits. And I'm always within the limits of reasonable exposure, but help them to learn through experience. Shape them with your behavior. We spoke about that. This is the most important of everything. They will become the person they are by following the behavior of the adults around them. Respect them the way you want them to respect you. They will in any way respect you with the structures of respect that you have shown to them. Work ethics must now start. We must now start teaching them to work. From the age 3 to 4, work ethics start to develop. We must show them that we work as parents and we all work. In this household, we all have tasks. And if you are 3 years old and you can walk and talk, you have a task. And let them learn to enjoy the task. Compliment them. Don't pay them with sweets. That's business. Don't pay them with something. Compliment them, be enthusiastic, emotionally compliment them with the successes and the work that they have done. Teach them to fail successfully. I want to show you the video and I'm going to rush. I'm going to put this on hold. Play problems away. Now, dear parents, when there's a problem in the relationship or the life of the child, start to play with the child, and in the playing activity, talk to the child and talk the child out of the crisis, but make it a play activity, make it fun, make it light, so that it just doesn't become an emotional burden for the child to carry this something that went wrong. So if there's a problem, play it out, filter it through the fun side of life, make it light, make it easy for them to deal with that, so that they don't experience themselves to be a failure in the eyes of their parents. That's bad, bad, bad for them. Then activity build habits of routine, discipline, respect, and problem solving. These are the 4 things. Dedicate yourself to teach yourself a life of routine, a life of discipline, respect, and problem solving. These are the basic structures that you must help your child to develop and learn. With that, a quick video. I want to share this video with you. Ask yourself, at what point will you shout at this young boy, it's a boy, that with this activity? You are the parent, you're watching this video, and I want you to see what happens here. It's a fascinating parent, a perfect parenting example of a crisis, of a child exploring the world around him. Watch what happens and ask yourself, when will I have shouted and screamed maybe and say, stop it now? Okay, let's have a look. Number 1, 2, 3, oops, 4, aish. That could be a bad one. Aish. Almost. Oh, not. Watch the parent now. Whoa. Focus. Market wizard Larry Benedict is one of the few. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen and parents? There is 0 in that video that we can fault the parent with. That is the perfect way of dealing with a toddler. Lizette, I am out of it. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you for your time and for an insightful presentation. I'm sure the recording will be watched by many. In conclusion, before we allow for questions, this recording will be available on the Shadowmatch events calendar by tomorrow. It will sit on our YouTube channel, and you are welcome to share the recording with anyone that you think might be interested. I'm going to stop the recording before I allow for questions so that those that want to run can run. Thank you very much for joining. And we do appreciate your time today for this webinar.